Price of freedom is death. We're coming to get our check.
Black First brothers and sisters, welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I am your host, Afro Elite. Please make sure, if you haven't done so already, to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you do not miss out on any future content. Also, leave a thumbs up and share it on your various social media platforms, because that really does help the reach and growth of the channel. Thank you for all of what you're doing. Thank you very much. Now, we know that the FBA family is making a lot of progression as far as the reparations movement, and the dominant society hates it. They hate it to the core. So they always try to find some type of method of sabotaging, whether it's tethering another group of people to our reparations, whether it's trying to say we don't deserve reparations, whether it's trying to say that America just doesn't have the money for reparations. No matter what the argument is, they're always trying to combat us getting our earned, well-deserved debt being paid, which is reparations for slavery. Now, recently they found some type of Sambo whose lineage is kind of mysterious, don't know where he is from or his family, but they found him and he made an opinion piece about how reparations isn't the solution. It's the fathers being in the home. It's the lack of fathers, quote unquote, that is the problem. It's not us not having our reparations. It starts off, leave it to Elon Musk to tweet a message that perfectly encapsulates the truth about reparations for slavery. First off, we're off to a terrible start if you're going to talk about Elon Musk making a good tweet at all about reparations, and then to do that extra ass kissing perfectly encapsulates. Dude, what? Oh, this is a bad start. This is a bad start. Let's continue. At a time when the push for reparations is gaining steam nationwide, shout out to the FBA family. We out here doing the work. Musk mid-December missive, quote, it's easy to fool people, but it's almost impossible to convince people that they've been fooled, end quote, has never felt more relevant. Nigga, please, oh my God, that's the first paragraph, and I'm already, oh my God, please, here we go. Let's continue. Over the past 50 years, progressives and self-appointed black leaders have fooled many Americans. They fooled them into believing that the economic, health, and educational disparities plaguing our community are a result of racial injustice, white privilege, and systemic racism. Because they are. All of the things that he just listed, from economics to health to educational disparities, all of them are because of race. 100% because of race. And to be totally honest, not much else. It's all race. It is all racial. It's not class, it's not sex, it's not sexual orientation, it's racial. These are all racial problems. For this foolish crowd, he's calling me and you fools because we're pushing for reparations, so he's calling us fools. He's said this multiple times already. For this foolish crowd, the reparations movement, which this week gained traction in the formation for a reparations commission in my hometown, St. Paul, Minnesota, is another effort to obscure the real ailments impacting blacks while siphoning off billions of dollars towards themselves and a never-ending class of government-dependent families. No, the real ailments is the fact that us, the foundation of this country, built this country and built the land, and all of it was maldistributed to the dominant society. And now we're coming for all of that wealth back. We're coming for our check. That is the real ailment. Okay? Siphoning off no, get out of here. Government dependent families. The thing is, we can't depend on the government. We cannot depend on the government. You got Asians out here, they get pushed down to the ground. They scrape their knee because somebody accidentally bumped into them or something like that. That's a hate crime. They getting hate crime bills left or right. Hate crime. You say something to them. I don't know. I think that this Chinese food is a little cold. That's a hate crime. You say something to a gay man, hate crime. That's a homophobic hate crime. You look at somebody from the J community, the small hat community, you look at them the wrong way. Oh my God, that's a hate crime. They was blaming hate crimes on Kanye West. Kanye West hasn't committed a single act. He's just been saying some crazy stuff. They saying that they putting hate crime, they blaming him for hate crimes. I did a video about that not long ago. Yet you got black people who are getting shot in the back, running away from police officers, and they're like, well, I don't know if it's a race thing. We just don't know. We don't know for sure. You got black people literally in modern times being lynched, and they're saying, well, it looks like a common suicide to me. So no, this government has not done anything for black people. Talk about government dependent families. The families, the black families of this country now can't depend on the government. Continuing, rather than demand reparations, black Americans should seek legal damage from left-wing institutions, along with their allies in the media and academia, who helped destroy the black family while producing a culture of pervasive victimhood. Now, first off, we don't do the left wing, right wing. They're all the same. They're two different wings on the same bird. Okay, it's a very anti-black, racist, bigoted bird, and they're just two different wings on it. They're the same. They're 100% the same. We don't really make that type of separation. Secondly, notice the gaslighting of the word victimhood, and notice who it's always used against. It's always used against us. Okay, we are victims. I will say, I am myself personally, I am a victim of the system of anti-black racism, and every single black person around the world, whether they want to believe it or not, they are victims as well too. Okay, and you're not going to shame me into saying or not saying that I'm a victim. Okay, do you know how evil it is to victimize a group of people for your own personal gain, for your own game, to racially oppress people for half a millennia, and then to tell those people that they shouldn't say anything, they shouldn't even say anything about it, they shouldn't even have the mentality that they've been victimized? Why don't you tell that to Ukraine? Why don't you go to Ukraine and say, hey, y'all asking for billions of dollars and resources and all this stuff. Y'all need to stop with this victimhood y'all got. Y'all need to just pull yourselves up by your bootstraps and just work hard. Y'all shouldn't be asking for handouts. Notice that they don't say that about Ukraine. They didn't say that about the Afghanistan refugees. They don't say that about nobody. When the Europeans came to this country, they always talk, well, my grandfather, he came from Europe, because when they came from this country to this country, nobody said that was victimhood. Nobody says, why don't you all go back to Europe and stop this victimhood mentality? They came over with the Homestead Act. They got free resources just for coming over here and being white. They got free resources. Nobody says anything about the victimhood they had and they continue to have. But they will tell the actual victims, the only real victims, that we need to stop with the victimhood mentality. That's what they will tell us. That's evil. That is evil. Continuing, because despite their very real consequences, the biggest cause of black inequality isn't slavery or redlining or Jim Crow. It's our community's dependency on social welfare programs and the fatherless families they continue to subsidize. Slavery, Jim Crow, all of that stuff, that is the biggest cause. We have not been made whole since that. We haven't been made whole since they claimed slavery ended. And then they did the thing with Jim Crow. They deliberately kept things in place. First, so y'all know, redlining, it hasn't stopped. It's just not as open as it used to. They're still doing redlining to this very day. If y'all didn't know, they're still doing that to this very day. It's just a lot more low key. But all of these are the real issues. These are the issues that our issues today stem from those issues in the past. They talk about welfare programs, Family, who is the number one group of people on welfare? Who are the number one beneficiaries of welfare? Is white women. They are the number one beneficiaries of welfare, and the dominant society allows them to benefit from welfare and social programs, and yet the only group of people that they point the finger at when it comes to any type of welfare or social programs are us. We are the only group of people that they're saying, oh, you see all that welfare and government dependency, man, you got to get off that. But his wife, Becky, has been getting the WIC and all of that stuff from her inbred children, and nobody wants to say anything about that. Let's continue. Established as part of President Johnson's Great Society, these programs paved the way for the dissolution of the traditional black family. It's not like the Republicans are pushing for black families either, though. They all like that. The Republicans don't care nothing about black families at all whatsoever. They only use it as a talking point to say our problem is our own self. That's the only time they ever bring up a black family. They literally cringe when they see black families. They hate the sight of black families. They only talk about traditional black families when it's a talking point to say the real problem is you. In 1965, the late New York Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan called the then 24% unmarried birth rate in the black community a crisis. Moynihan wrote at the time that, quote, a national effort towards the program of Negro Americans must be dedicated towards the question of family structure. The object should be to strengthen the Negro family so as to enable it to raise and support its members as do other families. Here's the problem with that. You all sabotage the black families. We were working perfectly fine before the dominant society, and I'm putting them all in the same category, the left, the right, the Republican, the Democrat, I'm putting them all in the same category. The dominant society sabotages and continue to sabotage the black family. No other group has their family sabotaged. Even during their time of crisis, they didn't have their family systematically sabotaged. They didn't. When they put the Japanese in the internment camps, they didn't separate the families. They allowed the families to stay together. They just put them in the internment camps for a little bit and then gave them reparations. When you want to talk about the Trail of Tears and how they treated the red Native Americans, they didn't separate the families. They allowed the families to stay together. It's literally only us. It's only us who they've sabotaged our family structures and continue to. We're the only ones whose families get targeted like that. They continue to do things to break up the family and promote the destruction and the chaos of a broken black family. They don't do that with no other group. And yet they cause the issue, they cause the sickness, and they blame you for sneezing. They will literally cause you to get sick, and then when you start sneezing, they say it's your fault. Today, approximately 80% of black families are led by a single parent, almost always a mother without a husband. Enabled by welfare and the other, quote, good society handouts, the resulting low academic scores, high incarceration rates, and rampant unemployment confirm the massive negative impact progressive policies have had on Black America. Their policies that reparations, yet another form of handout, will not fix until fathers once again lead Black homes. First off, we will say that reparations is not a handout. It is a debt that is owed. If somebody owes you money, you don't call that a handout. If you take a loan from a bank, any bank in America, and it's time for you to pay that loan back with interest, because they'll charge you interest, but with interest, and you say, hey man, y'all a bank, y'all asking for a handout from me? No, there ain't no handout. We gave you that money to get it back with some more money. Give us our money. That's how all banks do it. And nobody ever calls that a handout. Nobody ever calls any other form of reparation to anybody else. Nobody ever calls that a handout, but they call us getting our reparations, our debt that is paid, that is owed, they call that a handout. Okay. Now, all of the things that he's named, the academic scores, the high incarceration rates, the unemployment, that's victim blaming, because all of that is the result of the dominant society subjugating black people. That is the result of them doing that to us. And that when it comes to academic scores, why is there a school to prison pipeline? There is a school to prison pipeline implemented and pushed by the dominant society. You got a black kid, he can throw a paper in the classroom just goofing off and playing around, and they'll say that that black kid needs to be put on medication and put in special ed. They don't do that to the non-black kids, though, but they'll do that to the black kids. There's been statistics and studies that have shown that black kids doing the same actions all kids at that age do, they're more likely to get suspended and expelled from school for doing the same thing that little Connor can do, and they'll be, oh, that's just kids being kids. But when it comes to a black kid, oh my God, he's wild. He needs to be put on drugs and sent to a special class or kicked out of school in general. When it comes to high incarceration rates, you know what they talk about high incarceration? They don't ever talk about how high the false incarceration rates are for black people, specifically black men. They don't ever talk about that. They don't ever talk about the fact that black men, specifically black people, but especially black men, are the number one most exonerated group of people in the country because we're the most falsely incarcerated group of people. They say, oh, black fathers, so black fathers is the result of the high incarceration. So was it the lack of black fathers that had y'all lock up the Central Park Five? When they got locked up, was that a result of the lack of black fathers, or was that a result of the fact that you guys locked them up solely because they were black kids? And the Central Park Five is one of many, many cases where they've done that. And they've had black people spend decades of their life behind bars for crimes that they did not commit. Okay, punished for crimes that they did not commit. That's not a lack of black fathers or fathers not being in the home or they're not being married or whatever. That is the purpose. That is because of the system of anti-black racism that we're being oppressed by. They talk about the unemployment. You know what's interesting about that is they don't ever blame unemployment, the unemployment rates that other groups of people have, because all groups of people in this country have unemployment rates to some degree or another. They don't ever say the reason why the unemployment rate is so high among whites is because y'all just lazy. It's because y'all be doing meth and y'all just don't love your dads and y'all be listening to that. They don't ever blame unemployment on the culture of a group. They are only blaming unemployment on us because it suits their narrative. Now, when other groups of people are unemployed, that's just society failing them. It's just society needs to do better. It's, we just got to get our economy better. We got to just build more businesses. It's the city that's failing them. It's the state. It's the government that's failing these people. But when it comes to the unemployment rate of black people, we're not going to account for all of the discrimination that goes on when it comes to the employment rate. The fact that we're the last hired and first fired, we're not going to account for none of that stuff. The fact that if you walk in the building with your natural hair, you're going to get sent out. We're not going to account for any of that stuff. Your unemployment, that's all on you, Negro. That's your fault. Everybody else's unemployment, that's the government's fault. But you, the fact that you are unemployed, that's your own fault because your dad isn't in your home and you listen to rap music and you smoke weed, even though everybody else smokes weed. But that's not a problem for them. We're gonna lock you all up for smoking weed. That goes into the high incarceration rates. Most of the people who are incarcerated for petty crimes that we don't incarcerate nobody else for. We incarcerate Negroes for that. We don't incarcerate nobody else for that. We blame Negroes for unemployment. We don't blame nobody else for that. This is victim blaming, family. All of this right here, this is victim blaming, and this is the result of the dominant society continuing to subjugate us through the system of anti-black racism. Okay? WS. This is what it is. This is exactly why we need our reparations. All of this right here is a case to make our reparations claim stronger. Everything he said will be fixed if we had our reparations. Continuing. Indeed, we can no longer ignore the result of generations upon generations of fatherlessness families. Now, here's the thing with that. Just because two people have a child and they split up does not mean that the child is fatherlessness. When you say the word fatherlessness, that gives the implication that the father is not in the child's life. Now, I did a video about a year ago stating that the CDC did a study that showed that Black American fathers are the number one fathers collectively among any group of people in the country. They're the highest quality fathers. They're the most interactive with their child, and they're the most involved in their children's lives. So just because you might not live in the same house as your child, because if the parents aren't together, the parents are going to have two different places to live. So you're only going to be able to live with one parent unless the parents are together. So just because you live with one parent doesn't mean that the other parent is not in your life. There's a lot of Black fathers who are very much so in their children's lives, and they don't live under the same roof. Now, of course, I promote, if you're going to have a child, especially a young child, you should be living in the house with the other parent. That's the way it's supposed to be. And we do need to start getting back to that. And there are a lot of Black families that are like that. Don't get me wrong. Just because there are a lot that aren't, I don't want to overshadow the families that are like that and the people that are striving to get back to that. So salute to them. But I make the case to say they're not fatherless children because the dad doesn't live with them. That means the dad's not in their life. They don't say that about no other group of people. It's a reality I identify with all too well as the son of a divorced mother who lived in a Harlem public housing in the early 1970s. As a child, I knew the taste of powdered eggs and government cheese. I witnessed the inhumane treatment of women and children at the hands of drug addicts, criminals, and gangs. It is a grim reality, one conveniently denied by old school progressives and young liberals intoxicated by the quick fix reparations easily offer. Here, first off, notice that they always try to, I was poor too. I was poor. I was eating government cheese and powdered eggs, and my mom couldn't pay the rent. And they always say they came from the hood. That's his "I came from the hood too" story. They always say that because they know they cooning. And they know people are going to reject them. Black people are going to reject them. So they all like, oh, well, let me hood it up. This is what they're trying to think they're doing. Let me hood it up. Oh, yeah, I came from the struggle, too. We was listening to, the Lion, the Tupac and all. I had to sell dope to make it. Whatever. I don't know if any of this stuff is true, to be honest. I can't say it's not true, but based off of how he lies, I believe it's not true. I'm going to say that. Continuing, reparations for slavery will not undo the damage fatherlessness has wrought. If any, the conditions-free financial payout will only exacerbate this intractable crisis. And, as Moynihan pointed out decades ago, this is a crisis made worse by, quote, woke Black leadership lacking in vision and accountability. Okay, first off, it's not conditions free at all. You need to check yourself. It's not conditions free whatsoever. Reparations, you got to qualify for that. And you qualify by being a part of the lineage, and that's it. There's no exceptions. You either are a part of the lineage or you are not. And if you are not, then you are not getting slavery reparations. And there are no exceptions to that. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what your people been through. Don't matter. You're not a part of the lineage. You ain't FBA. You just ain't going to get it. That's just what it is. That is the condition. Okay? Because it is a debt that is owed. Then notice he says woke. So sick of that damn word. They completely weaponized that word against black people. Woke. What does that mean? I don't even use that word anymore because of how much they use that. I'm so sick of that. Woke, black leadership lacking vision and accountability. Accountable for what? Accountable for what? For being the victims? This is saying that we are we should be accountable for our victimhood. We're the victims. Okay? Our ancestors are the victims. What should the slaves be accountable for the slavery that was put upon them? Is that what he's going to say next? To be honest, I would not be surprised if he did. I wouldn't be surprised if he said, hey, y'all was picking the cotton because y'all wasn't accountable. Y'all should have been more accountable. Today, while their leaders are busy acquiring multi-million property portfolios, black youth in urban areas are failing and falling behind. In 2019, for instance, only 14% of black students in Chicago public schools were proficient in reading. They always bring up Chicago. In Baltimore, public schools, 37% of black seniors read at grade level. High-performing private and charter schools are well-known solutions to these challenges, but school choice continues to be restricted by, you guessed it, progressive groups and teachers' unions. Here's the thing with that. These schools are failing because the schools literally target black kids. A lot of these schools that black people are in black neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods are generally underfunded. These schools are underfunded. These students are crowded. There's like 50 students in one classroom. These schools are not set up for black students to succeed at all. Not in Chicago, not in Baltimore. These schools are not set up for that. These schools are set up for them to fail. And then they overpunish the students in the schools as well. You have a whole bunch of SWS teachers who are saying the N-word and targeting these black students. These schools are set up for them to fail. And charter schools and private schools are no different whatsoever. The reason that they suggest private schools and charter schools is because of the fact that these private and charter schools, they can pretty much openly discriminate against black people. The thing is that with public schools, you kind of have to have a non-discriminatory standard. With private schools and charter schools, you can openly discriminate against them. They can be all like, yeah, I don't like your afro. No afros allowed. You're going to get kicked out if you wear an afro or if you wear braids or if you have locks or anything like that. They can literally do that, and they've done that before. Okay? These private and charter schools, they have higher rates of discrimination when it comes to black people than public schools do. They don't help black people. And they say that because they don't want to admit the fact that the public schools, the reason is because of the fact that a lot of them are underfunded and a lot of them target the black students. That is the problem when it comes to the schools. Continuing. And so school systems propelled by left-leaning policies turned out semi-literate, underemployable, angry young people trapped at the lowest levels of society and unsure whom to blame for putting them there. You blame white supremacy. That is who you blame. No wonder reparations sound so tempting. This dude, Lord, his ass. We're going to finish this off here. But no matter how great these challenges may seem, the way forward is not through reparations. Incorrect, but continuing. Instead, African Americans must return to their cultural roots of faith, family, and better education for their children. Better education for what? There are a lot of black people who are educated. Education doesn't increase your wealth at all. At all. There is no correlation between education and wealth. Okay? Some of the dumbest white folks in the world, they dropped out of college and everything like that. They're some of the richest people. Regardless of how neat a bow progressive tried to tie around it, reparations for slavery cannot undo the generational rot caused by decades of handouts and fatherlessness. Whoo, this dude. It will only further tether. Interesting, he used that word. It will only further tether. Interesting, he used the word tether. That's his word. That's his word he used. That's very interesting. He must have had some type of cultural urge to use that word. Somebody must have called him that earlier this morning or something, that morning when he wrote it. It will only further tether African Americans to the culture of dependency that can and must be dismantled. Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, can't depend on anybody. There is nobody we can depend on except ourselves. We're the only people we can depend on. Continuing, progressives, both black and white, often like to lie to themselves. Fathers don't matter. Whites want blacks down. Reparations for slavery can fix every black ill. But when it comes to fooling folks, it's not just Elon Musk dishing out words of wisdom. As Booker T. Washington wrote in his 1901 autobiography, the lie doesn't become truth, wrong doesn't become right, and evil doesn't become good just because it's accepted by a majority. And here they go. They always like to use somebody that this is the same thing that they do with Martin Luther King. He said that white people and black people, we should just judge each other by the content of our character. This race blind Dr. King that they try to manipulate us into believing existed. They always try. Oh my God. Now I'm sick of those folks. They're saying instead of reparations, which are owed, that is the debt that are owed to our people, regardless of your finances. So you could be the richest of the rich or the poorest of the poor. If your lineage traces back to American chattel slavery, you are owed reparations. Everything in between, you are owed reparations. Man, woman, rich, poor, gay, straight, Democrat, Republican. If you have the lineage of the descendants of American chattel slavery, you are owed reparations. If you are a black descendant of American chattel slavery, you're owed reparations, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. None of that. You are owed reparations. Okay? The reason that we are in this situation systemically is because of our race. It is because society sees us as black first, and they operate on that level. And they made your blackness a stigma in this country. They have systematically oppressed black people. They continue to do so. They have stripped us from the wealth, and they have given the wealth and continue to give the wealth to every other group of people. Regardless of the fact that they do not deserve it, they continue to give it to them. They refuse to give it to us. Everything that we do, when we build businesses, when we strive, when we get to college, and when we get our degrees, we are still discriminated against. We are still sabotaged. Our communities still have racist as police patrolling them. These things happen to this very day. It is not the lack of fathers in the home, the fatherlessness in the home. It is not that. And I'm not saying that because there's going to be somebody in the comments, well, there are some dead. Yeah, I'm not saying that none of them exist. But overall, and I'm going to put this in the description so you guys can check this out, because I did a video bringing up a study that black American fathers are the best overall. So there are FBA dads who are very involved in their children's life. Just because they don't live with their children does not mean that they're fatherlessness. That does not mean that at all. And if we really want to get into it, the fact that you all promote the dads not being in the homes, they promote that. They systemically sabotage the black families, and they do not do that to any other group of people at all in this country. They don't. So reparations will fix the black family, because the number one cause for divorce and people not sticking together and stuff like that is economic problems, is economic issues. When we get our reparations, that stuff is going to fix itself. So you want to talk about the quote fatherlessness? If you give us the reparations, we'll have stronger families. So bam, you get your solution right there that you're trying to talk against. That's just a talking point. And of course they have some coon because they know it'd be racist as hell if they had some non-black person say this. So of course they have some black looking person say this. But family, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Please follow me on my social media, which is the Afro Elite on Twitter and then Afro Elite on Instagram. Also, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. Leave a like and share it on your various social media platforms because that really does help the reach and growth of the channel. And for all of your support and everything that you guys do to help support this channel and grow this channel, I want to give a sincere thank you for all of what you do. With that being said, brothers and sisters, I will catch you guys later. Be one. Salute to you all.